Okay, welcome to Black Belt Interviews. This is Master David Hodgson. I'm delighted to be joined today by Master Nick Symonds from the UK. Hi, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's things?
All good, yeah. As I say, just been busy recently. Obviously getting ready for my 8th Dan grade, and that was last month,
Yeah.
and leading the national team out to the World Championships in Finland, which was a role I took on for post-COVID. So as soon as Taekwondo started to get back after COVID, I took over the role of the national team along with some really expert coaches, and we rebuilt the team, and we had some good success over the last couple of years. But that time's come to an end for me now. But yeah, enjoyable while it lasted.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. I mean, fortunately, we've had a chat about a week ago and catch up really from many years ago. We were training together under the same roof many times. I did see, obviously, online that you recently graded. We talked about that to 8th degree. It was quite something, wasn't it? What you were telling me, the physical test.
Yeah. It was part of my choice. And when I spoke to Grandmaster Ellis and Grandmaster Nardizzi, myself and Master Bernard, who went to the grading, I think I'm 48 years old, fairly young and active still, and you know, grading. I think grading's for all of us, whether you're a ninth cut or a black belt going for a higher down grade. I think at the end of the day, it's got to mean something to you, because it's, after all, Taekwondo is your personal journey. And for me, on my journey, I wanted to make sure that going through the 8th degree grading, it felt like I was still able to perform.
Yeah.
And so we had a really strong test. It was long, it was involved, and it was thorough. And to come out the other side thinking that I've earned my rank is personal to me. That's all it is, really,
Yeah, of course. So did you have a say in the input, or was it all just?
No, I think Grandmaster Ellis and Grandmaster Nardizzi, they had lots of conversations about what they thought the test should be, and myself and Master Bernard, we prepared to a point at how we thought it might go, but there were some surprises on the day, which made it more and more enjoyable.
Yeah.
But it was testament to them, with their 50 years experience in Taekwondo. That they provided a really good grading that I'm happy to have been part of. And I could reflect back on.
Fantastic. Yeah. Amazing. And it was great to see you have that, and then catching up, because both of us started pretty much in a similar place, similar area.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about your beginnings? And
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I was 14 years old, just turned 14, and I think even back then, 14 doing Taekwondo was kind of a young age. There wasn't any kids classes. It was, you just join in with whatever class is available. And I started actually in Finchley under Master Nardizzi. He was a 4th degree at the time, and I was just introduced by a friend of mine. We went for a trial class, as most people do, and I think seeing the level of her technique, it impressed me straight away. Like, I was like, wow, this is incredible. Like, this is technical, this is powerful, and I was hooked straight away. My friend, not so much, and we done our 9th cup gradings together, and then he said, that's enough for me. And I think from that moment on, you dig deep into your own resolve. You say, well, I want to do this, so I'm not going to stop because you've stopped.
Yeah.
And so I continued all through my cup gradings, and then Master Nardizzi finished teaching at Finchley Taekwondo. Probably I started in 1989. I think she finished probably in 1990, something like that.
Yeah.
And then Nardizzi, Grandmaster Nardizzi, he took the club over, and then I started training at Islington Taekwondo Club as well as Finchley, and sadly the Finchley club closed down.
Yeah.
And so I transferred to Islington, and I stayed there until I got my 1st degree, and until I got my first European bronze medal in patterns. And then again, like a lot of students, sometimes it's time to move on. But I've always maintained in Taekwondo that when you move on, you don't burn bridges. You move on in the best possible way so that you can, because it's a family at the end of the day. We're all here together
Yeah.
trying to work to the same goal. But the times at Islington and Finchley, 2-hour training sessions, a few times a week, martial art training, not sport training, martial art training,
Yeah.
which I think was a very, very good grounding for my sport career in Taekwondo.
Yeah.
Because you're being taught technically how to do stuff, and therefore when you go and do a patterns competition or a breaking competition, or you're learning some sparring drills, because you've had a really good grounding, it makes those things easier, you
Yeah.
know. And as an instructor, as a coach myself, I can see where sometimes this is not adhered to, and
Right.
then competitors struggle.
Yeah.
So I think that and as I say, between the age of 14 to 17, like I was on the buses, I was walking to classes, I was doing all those things where you're like at 10 o'clock at night when you're coming out of Islington, having to get the bus home or wherever it might be, like it's all the hard miles that put you where you are now, because
Yeah.
it wasn't easy to get to training, or you wanted to go so badly. You had to, some nights, I remember, like on the way back, maybe I'd be like, okay, I've either got enough money for the bus home or to get some food and walk home. And
Right.
sometimes I was thinking, you know what, I'm gonna take the walk home and just grab some food, because it was, you had to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
Um, and I say like that was a very good grounding all those years, and then which led me into becoming an instructor myself, age 19.
Okay.
And then bringing up my own students, probably in the same mold as how I was brought up through Taekwondo.
Yeah. Yeah, because you do draw from your early experiences, don't you?
Yeah,
And they're quite different to today. I mean, I did visit the Islington Dojang a number of times.
yeah,
I trained mainly in the Croydon under
yeah,
some instructor, obviously. But we came up to Islington, and Islington was a bit of a, how should we say it had its own unique place. I
yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah.
the floor was pretty hard, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was not, I don't remember any windows.
No, 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 no. Yeah,
It was
exactly that.
super
And
hot.
also as well, I think uh, it was a different time because um, you had adult black belts, and also the age of being an adult in competition was 16 for me. So I
Yeah,
remember being like a red belt black tag
yeah.
and fighting grown men in competitions, which is a whole new level, because you go from being a junior, then suddenly you're 15, you're 16 years old, you're now fighting someone as old as your dad. It's a real tough school, and
Yeah.
and as I say, you're not in the class, you're not sparring sports people,
Yeah.
you're fighting martial artists,
Yeah.
who who do things, who do things to make sure they can defend themselves, which is again different to scoring a point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you say that, isn't it? Because that's what it was like, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
people were there to, like you say, look after themselves. That's why they were there. They weren't there for competitions or anything.
no, no, no. You throw a nice side kick at somebody, and then they'll throw a down kick on your thigh. You think, oh, cheers for that.
Yeah.
You throw a
100%.
nice side kick at them, and they kick you with a back kick in your back. You think
Yeah.
that's not fair, but that's what you do. So that was, but when I think about like how time travels, how time goes fast, we're talking like 30 years ago,
Yeah.
more than 30 years ago.
Wow.
Um,
I know it's flown by, isn't it? I mean, so when you were growing up, you're doing taekwondo. Was there anything else in your life at the time, or was it just became it? Did it?
well, it became it. Like, I think I played football at school, and I played football on a Saturday for a Saturday team, and I think I do remember getting to about 18, 19, and thinking, I can't risk being here on a football pitch on a Saturday, getting kicked up in the air,
Yeah.
to have to go and train on a Sunday with an injury, at squad training or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember pushing that to one side and then just focusing solely on Taekwondo. And I think my first full-time job, it was working in a college, and it allowed me to get to the college early and hang up the punch bag if I wanted to, or go through some patterns. So like coincide, like my first job, like 19, 20 years old, I was always in the gym before work or after work and trying to maximize that time so that I could go through my techniques and my patterns and such.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the end, you were training pretty much every day.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I think I'd normally I would train at least obviously by myself once a day. This is what like maybe from 19, 18, 19 years on, every day by myself. Then I would go to the club and train, or when I started training with the national team, I would obviously do squad training, and I think that was squad training was my first recollection of squad training. I squad trained as part of a Great Britain team,
Yeah.
so I was on the back end of that. So it was commonplace for you know you go to squad training in Chester or Manchester or wherever it might be, and obviously you'll have the Scottish team come down,
Yeah.
the competitors from Wales come across, the England, and it was just like it was tough.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was really really tough. A good induction, but again, you know for any young competitor, there's nothing better than to train with people that are better than you.
Yeah.
And then you get a realistic flavour of where you are.
Yeah.
And so I remember going to probably some of my first squad training in Chester, and someone who went on to become a really good friend of mine was a guy called James Carrier, and he went on to he was European champion in 1995,
Wow.
and I remember squad training with him the first time, and I was like, it was just night and day.
Yeah.
I was thinking the golfing class between me and him is immense,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and all you want to do is try and bridge that gap, and it makes you train harder. Like I think quite often, just kind of like reflecting back on what I see, or or the kind of martial artist you could become is one where you shy away from that kind of stuff, and you don't want to admit it. But again, James Carrier, Neil Ernest is another friend of mine who, around that same time, I quickly realised if I want to get good at this, I've got to hang around these kind of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would make the effort to go and train in Wales,
Right.
and I'd drive down there for a weekend and do my training there, because I realised that these guys are a little bit ahead of the game, and I need to be where they are.
Yeah.
So that was all happening around 19, 20, 21, that kind of time. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, who were the people that were around you at the time, impressing you, and you were looking up to, and you mentioned.
Yeah. So obviously it was like uh, it, domestically as competitors, definitely 100% James and
Yeah.
Neil. And then as coaches, Grandmaster John Taylor, Grandmaster Gary Miller, they were the coaches of the day. And they had such a great insight into the competitions and how good you have to be. And then further afield, there'd be people like Stefan Tapalatu, who again, you'd look at the phenomenal kind of ability they had, and you're just thinking, how do we bridge this gap? This is crazy. How do you do that? But you just try. That was my goal. I'm gonna do this. And I think probably. And then as other seniors outside of that, you've got like Grandmaster Ellis, Grandmaster Nardizzi, Tom Denis, who have all been like people that I've always had the pleasure of sharing ideas with and learning from.
Yeah. 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 No, very much. Yeah, that's right. And like you say, in your beginnings, which was and ours was before the sport had started to pick up. It was training in martial art classes, wasn't it? We were doing martial arts,
Yeah.
traditional taekwondo. Then the sport became available. There was bit more communication, I guess, across the countries with it. But then it kind of picked up quite rapid, didn't it? And you had these people turning up at competitions. Stefan Tapalatu and Scott came over to Scotland, and
Yeah,
like you say, these guys were on a different level,
yeah,
and but hugely inspirational, and everyone
yeah,
wanted.
yeah. But yeah, and I suppose yeah, you just go back to your training and think, well, I've seen them do this technique and that drill and that one, and you try and make them. I used to carry a little book full of my training drills or my ideas. Obviously, I didn't have a notes on my phone, so you had
Yeah,
to have a book.
yeah.
You write your ideas down, and I think, like, just and also as well videos. There'd be that kind of thing where, like, it was like back then, you wanted to video somebody, you had to have a video camera the
Yeah,
size
yeah,
of a bus, and it, like, or you'd get someone else to send you the video, and then I remember again, like, watching endless videos of how these people were doing the techniques and how they were performing the patterns.
yeah,
And I think, they say that imitation is the highest form of flattery.
yeah,
Well, that's what we were doing. I'd be imitating in the patterns how someone moved until it became my own,
yeah,
because you'd be like, everything you did would just be, you'd imitate, you try, then you become your own person.
yeah,
But that's how I think you trial and error. You work out what's good, what's not. And again, like, the competitions for me, I spent from 1993 to 97 as a first degree, and that was a long time back then to spend as one grade. But for me, it was like, well, that was fundamental to me because it helped me win a lot of medals. It helped me understand my how I was sparring and whatever, and I put the gradings to the side for a moment just so I could focus on that. And then I think 97, I took my second degree, and thereafter I probably had a foundation that I could rely on.
yeah,
Um, so again, it was putting those priorities in order. Probably, if you ask me, did you intend to do that? I'd probably say no, I didn't intend to do that. But at the time, it felt right that I wasn't going to focus on doing the grading. I was just going to move from being a martial artist into understanding sport.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, and, and again, all that goes with sport because you go to a competition, as you know, and you arrive at the competition to register at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you're not fighting until 6 p.m. You know, and that again is part of becoming a sports person in Taekwondo because you have to learn that when you arrive, you go and rest. You don't warm up for 3 hours. You warm up, and you start to learn. And then when you go away for international competitions, you've that learning, you transfer it and you say, okay, I'm going to be relaxed on day one, be relaxed on day two. Now I'm going to start to warm up on day three because
yeah,
I'm on tomorrow afternoon, rather than expending all your energy and getting so nervous that you get it wrong on at the first hurdle, So all that was, instrumental, probably up until, I say early 20s, competing lots. And then I had it for me. I had a goal, and that was to try and become a European champion. And probably, like, when I think about it, that was my goal, and I fulfilled my goal. And it took me 7 years to get there, in terms of, like, getting my first Euros in 1995, and then eventually becoming European champion in 2001. Again, like, it was just toil after toil, with, like, hard work after hard work, loads of disappointments,
yeah,
enough disappointments sometimes that you think, what's the point? But you kind of persevere, you kind of keep going back to it, until it goes right for you, So
yeah, yeah.
that, yeah.
So you never lost sight of that goal, despite all the.
No, I kind of I kept with that goal, and I say 2001, and it was before the split, obviously. And so those are the days when it was one person per category, per country. So when you arrived at the competition, you knew that everyone around you had become the national champion or was the best in that country. So it was a much more like, not, I wouldn't say sterile environment, but it like when you think now in some competitions you've got 3 or 2 from that country, and it's a busier environment. Don't get me wrong, I think the standard is still incredible.
Yeah, yeah,
I think the standard is incredible, like 100% no doubt about that. But to win it before the split was also a
yeah,
nice thing to have done, I think, you know.
yeah. Like you say, you was up against every national champion every round, weren't you? Yeah,
Yeah. You know,
yes.
round one was as difficult as the final, you know.
Yeah,
Every round was a final. It was didn't feel like it was a warm-up round, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
So yeah, to do that was great. And when I coupled winning the Euros also with becoming a full-time instructor.
okay, yeah,
So that was exactly the same year I decided to become a full-time instructor. And you know, that again has its challenges in itself where you're out trying to find schools, finding students. Um, so that was a busy year, 2001, 100%, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a different thing altogether, isn't it? Becoming a full-time instructor, like you say, coming
Yeah,
from employment to self-employment, and all the pros and cons with that.
absolutely. Yeah, that was it was like I think partly as well. I think I was like uh, 26 years old when I became full-time instructor.
Yeah,
And so I was probably young enough to, you know, put loads of hours in
yeah, yeah,
and not stop. And if someone wanted a private lesson on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, I'm your man. I'll be there. If they, you know, if I've got to drive from South London to North London to do a class, I'll be there. It's not a problem. I can do it. You know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
again, nothing like you know, uh, not to make light of it, but I mean, I think I started the idea of becoming a full-time instructor with like 8 students,
yeah,
10 students. Like it was just a dream, you know.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
just some kind of crazy dream. I thought I could do this. I've seen a couple of people in front of me, you know, a good friend like Philip Lear, Master Lear, like, you know, I saw him do it maybe a year or two before I did it, and I'm like, wow, that's incredible, you know, like how you do that. And so that was a dream to try and do it, and I suppose hard work pays off because um, you just slowly build, and hopefully you look back and say, wow, that's been a good
yeah,
been a
yeah.
good 20 odd years, you know.
For sure, for sure. I mean, different goal, same mindset, same mindset. You kind of you're winning. You know, the perseverance, the courage to do it. Different skills, but like you
Yeah,
said, you adapt to the new challenge, don't you?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then obviously you have your students that you then start to look at them and think, oh, how can I get that yellow belt to become British champion? You know,
Yeah,
and that excitement doesn't leave me today. You know, like I was at the competition last Sunday, English Championships in Hayward Heath,
yeah,
and you know, just to have my students there and just try and give them that extra 10% to go and win the medal, it still gives you that bit of a buzz, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so I know that I'm, you know, like, as I say, like it's been 34 years of training, in total 30 years of teaching. I think nearly, yeah, next year I think it's 30 years of teaching,
yeah,
and like that little buzz doesn't leave me, you know,
yeah, yeah. Whether it's
doesn't leave me.
whether it's you up there or the yellow belt, it's the same, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
only
and also as well, I don't know how, like again, I know it's as a fellow instructor, but similarly for me, like teaching Sajid or Sadio Maki still fills me with that excitement. Like it doesn't matter to me because I still see a white belt come through the door. And I'm thinking, right, how can I make this white belt learn Sadio better than I taught it last week? Because there must be an easier way. There must be a, you know,
yeah,
there must be a better way. So well, I think, you know, it's that whole thing about like never tire of learning, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
still, whether you're instructing, competing, training, you're like that whole thing about never tire of learning. So
No,
yeah.
that's so true, isn't it? You think your next white belt will be better than the last one because you know a little
Yeah.
bit something extra, don't you? You picked up
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, it's all been a roller coaster of that stuff. And then I think like um after winning the Euros and becoming a full-time instructor, 100% I was still very motivated to be a competitor. and going off to the World Championships in Dortmund and being part of a team that won the World Champs in team power. That was a good feeling. Being part of a team that won the European team patterns in 2005. You know, like all these things where, you know, only the competitors know how many hours you invested to get that little bit of medal, you know, that little bit of, okay, those are all things that kind of shape us to where we are. And then fast forwarding off to like taking over as head coach of our national team. And, you know, and in itself, that's pulling together all my experiences as an instructor, my experience as a competitor. You know, you put it all together and you kind of work with other people and families and parents and young competitors, and you know, and again, you just got to hope you got enough experience to manage that with the team. But again, that was, you know, 2 or 3 years of a good thing where, you know, I could impart some of my knowledge or the way I feel the national team should go. And you know, you know, just be like you know, having the conviction to see it through and to say no, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do it this way, you know, and not change your process is also important.
Yeah. So in that side of things, were you conducting the squads? Was it under your training?
Yeah, so I had a very good coaching team of coaches that I appointed, and but I think for me it was more about I didn't do that much coaching. I did a little bit of coaching, more on team patterns, because that's something that I really enjoyed doing as a competitor, and I think that, you know, it's a good event to try and do. It's a hard event to do, you know, but it's a good event. You can get your head around it. Team patterns, individual patterns, but generally I was there to just have a vision on what I felt the team should look like and the energy of the team. And again, like it's hard, it's difficult because you're dealing with people, and everyone has a slightly different agenda as to what you might have. But it's pulling those people together, and some of the stuff, like, you know, they're not massive moments in the scheme of Taekwondo, but to get someone who doesn't particularly do team patterns to go and win a bronze medal at the Euros is like, well, you know, I kind of persuaded you and I got there. Or someone who doesn't normally do team power or team sparring to say, see, I told you, and well done for winning that match. You know, again, like it's that's for me what a coach should do, you know. It kind of takes the competitor who doesn't quite think they believe in themselves, and with a bit of coercion and a bit of push and a bit of confidence, they get it and they say, oh, do you know what? Yeah, I can do that, you know. And to watch them kick on from there is also a good feeling, you know.
Yeah. Amazing. And you did that for 3 years?
I did it, yeah, like 2020, like but the minute that we were allowed to go back to do after COVID. So our first training sessions were outdoors on a field.
That's right, yeah.
With no contact, which is difficult when you're trying to prepare people for championships. Then eventually to moving indoors with no contact, and then maybe only 3 months before the first championships in 2021. Now we can start to have some contact, and it's just not ideal. But the guys, the competitors responded really well. And okay, the one in Spain was almost like, for everybody, I think, was almost like a feel out Euros. You know, where are we? What's the thing? And then 5 months later, we had another Euros in Croatia, and the team really performed well. We finished inside the top 10, and then 2023 rolled around with the Euros and the Worlds in it. And again, at the Euros in Romania, we had some good successes. But when you go to a World Championships like the one we had in Finland, you know, it's a very high standard, and the medals can be gobbled up by any number of between 6 and 8 countries before you even had a look at it. You know, it's like really tough. But again, like it's a showcase, isn't it? It's a showcase of how good Taekwondo is.
Yeah, for sure. So these top countries that are getting the medals, you know, a lot of them. What is it that they've got? Do you think that other countries haven't just yet, or?
Okay, so I think there's some of them that have got money.
Yeah,
That's important. They've got money. They have funding from their governments, their Ministry of Sports.
yeah,
So that's hugely important because you know, like a lot of national teams are one of those ones where it's self-funding
sure.
to the most part, and so therefore, where if everything's being equal, all things being equal, the first question should be, are they good enough?
Yeah,
But however, in countries where it's self-funding, the first question is, have you got enough money?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know, and not to be negative, but that's the first question because you can't, you know, in other countries possibly you can take the best people and fund them and not worry about money.
yeah.
But you know, so there is that element of it, and it's not to be negative; it's just the reality of it.
Sure.
So there is that on that side, finances, and secondly as well, like I think in England, doesn't matter what taekwondo group you come from, there's just so many taekwondo groups. So therefore, to keep a hold of the standard is very tough.
Yeah,
It's really tough. So like, you know, whether you're doing a low block from here, 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 already there's 25 different low blocks
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
you're not careful. You know, there's 25 different ways of sparring. You know, like it's whereas you get some countries where they've managed to keep more control over the national standard.
yeah,
Maybe there's just one way of doing a low block, for
yeah,
instance.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's again that makes a huge difference.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, that's just a thing that we have here, isn't it? Like you said, there's quite a few groups, different ways of doing things, and some people are changing things so as a standard, but some people aren't. So there's differences, isn't there? Like you say, and sometimes that can count in patterns. There's a significant point difference between two.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think um, it's difficult because I mean, like, if you take pattern competition, you know, I still think that like doesn't matter again what group you're in, how the patterns are performed. I think like as a judge, it it must be difficult to judge patterns. You know, like as you say, like some judges are they focus on the stances more, are they focused on the body position, are they focused on the preparation, are they focused on the power, how strong the kicks are. You know, like with you might have a set of criteria in front of you, but I think human nature says that you start to look at stuff because to your eye it makes more sense.
Yeah,
Um, and so therefore you kind of yeah, sometimes you go, oh, how'd that person win? How'd that person win? Really? Okay. You
yeah,
know, it's subjective. It's really subjective.
yeah,
You know, and on another point there, you look at spectators at competitions, and I feel for spectators sometimes because I look at them that they must think, I don't know what's going on over there. Like,
yeah,
you know, because it's hard. You know, like they might look at two people doing a pattern and think, okay, well, I don't know, I don't understand how that person won either. You know,
yeah, yeah,
because it's one of those like in sparring, everyone's got an opinion because it's just fighting, you know. Or in power testing, it's quite straightforward. If you broke the boards, you won. If you didn't break the boards, you didn't win.
yeah,
In
yeah, yeah,
special technique, if you managed to climb 2 meters 70 and kick a target, well done. If you didn't, it's quite straightforward, like a bit like the 100-meter running race, you know.
yeah,
But in patterns, it's difficult because you know every umpire has got their upbringing, their way of looking at patterns, and then it comes down to how many courses have they been on, you know, or what is promoted well in their country
yeah.
as to what a pattern is. So it becomes really tricky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you're preparing students and what to expect, yeah, I guess that's it. But nevertheless, the competition pulls the people together and raises the standard, and you get
Yeah,
performances, great martial artists, don't you? Like you said.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, say at the World Championship just gone, you know, I don't think anyone could argue with who won certain events because they do stand out.
Yeah,
Um, but it must be it must be a nightmare for an umpire to be so on it the whole day,
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to always formulate those correct decisions. You know, just
yeah.
yeah, tough. Not a job I'd want.
Exactly. Yeah. So a very full Taekwondo career, many different roles: student, instructor, competitor, national coach, and so on. Is any of those that kind of resonate with you more than the others, or did you enjoy them all at their time? You enjoy them all, or is there are you a
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's strange because it having this like long career in teaching and competing. There's I see this era in my head, which is the one which is the 2000 sorry the 1994 to like the 2000 era, and that's me kind of like being, maybe I was like a part-time instructor. Taekwondo was, I had a job. It was just like it was fun. It was good fun, and but I had some great memories. I obviously attended European Championships from '95 to 2000, and then I think there's this other break in my brain where it's like 2000 to maybe 2010 when I finished competing, and then this other break now from 2010 to 2013. But there's no doubt that those years as a competitor from like 95 to 2001,
yeah,
they were like they were the formative years. They were the ones that, you know, when I say to some of the competitors I've been working with, and they ask me, "Oh, when was your first Euro, sir?" I'm like, 1995. They're like, they, "What? I wasn't even alive then. I
yeah,
wasn't even alive in '95." And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't remember much about it, but
yeah,
all I know is that it was hard work. It was those formative years for me were, you couldn't buy it. You can't buy it. You
yeah.
can't buy it. And I was okay. I was a pretty good competitor. You know, like nationally was, you know, could win medals, won the Euros,
Yeah,
and I'd always say I was, you know, middle of the pack. You know, in on a world stage, I wouldn't have said I was. I was a hard worker, but without those formative years,
yeah,
I don't know if the other part would have followed.
yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So coming through, did you identify with any the areas that we trained in, pattern, sparring, power? Were any one of those your thing, or did it all? You loved it all?
Yeah, I think that the problem I had with sparring was, I think like most people, when you get to that level in international sparring, you do need a coach alongside you that can show you the way. And I didn't have that really at the time. A lot of it I was, as I say, feeding off friends of mine in Wales and, you know,
Yeah,
whatever it might have been. So therefore, uh, I found patterns kind of a more consistent way to win,
yeah,
because if you did what was in the encyclopedia and you performed it with power, observing the training secrets, observing the theory of power, whatever it might be, then then it was hard to get beaten. You see, because you're doing taekwondo. It's like you're trying to do. Whereas in sparring, you know, if there's not enough events for you to take part in, or if you're not being coached in the right way, or you're up against some guy who's been kickboxing or whatever it might be, you always feel like, you know, if you're not putting in those rounds regularly, maybe you always feel like, I'm good, but there's another level here which I can't put my finger on until I cross that hurdle, you know.
yeah, yeah,
You know, or I get a coach that can help me do that. So I always felt with patterns, um, I was I had good timing, I had relatively good technique, and it was something to build on.
yeah,
And then obviously, I did have a coach in that, and that was Master Denis. And I would regularly go down to his. If I squad train on a Saturday, I'd be with him on a Sorry, if I squad train on a Sunday, I'd be with him on a Saturday, and we just go through patterns, only patterns, yeah.
yeah,
And maybe like 2 or 3 hours, patterns, and it would be like just drilling it. And he was as picky as I was, in that if wasn't so correct, go back, start again, do that one again, do that one again, do that one again, and then like, so it was over analyzing everything on patterns, and again, uh, and then once you get the knack for it and you start to, you know, get that poise on the mat, on the floor, and the confidence on the floor, then yeah, like I could win nationally and internationally
yeah.
in patterns. that that was okay, that was doable. But the sparring in team sparring, I team sparring for me was a great event because over 2 minutes I could always find enough to win or draw. I didn't really lose a lot in team sparring, but in individual, you do need someone I think that can guide you through the rounds in preparation. But in patterns you have a chance because, as I say, if you're following the book, if you're following your encyclopedia, you've got a good coach next to you,
Yeah,
and you're doing things correctly. It's hard for someone to say that's wrong.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
in that respect,
yeah, 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 for sure.
Mm.
So yeah, like you say, you don't need the the endless rounds of sparring with someone else that you need that you in
Yeah.
patterns. You just need a coach and a good eye.
Well, yeah,
And
and I say one thing that I'm most satisfied with is that during that international career, to be to win the worlds in team power, to win the Euros in team patterns, Euros in team power, like and then to compete individually as a patterns and a sparring person, it just felt like I was an all rounder.
yeah,
And again, that goes back to me wanting to be a martial artist first and foremost. It was you give me four disciplines, I can pretty much have a go at all four
yeah, 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 yeah,
or do well in three of them. So that, and again, I think um, in today's competitor, even with my own students, they love to spar.
yeah,
Can I get them to do their patterns? Only if I really persuade them. But if they didn't, they'd rather just go there and spar. Which I
yeah,
think's a shame
yeah,
because you should be wanting to do at least two or three events. I think
yeah, yeah,
that's just my way. It's an old school way,
yeah,
but you can't help where you came from.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. So when we did have that chat a little while ago, we was talking about obviously if you've been doing taekwondo a long time, you can pick up injuries. And sadly, some people have to have operations for it and everything. You saying you kind of not needed to do that. You've been in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think. Well, I've avoided any major surgery. I had an arthroscopy in 2006 because of cartilage problems on my knee, but that's about the only thing that has really gotten in my way.
Yeah,
Um, but again, I think part of that was like, okay, again, in the early years, I competed a lot, but then probably from 26 years old onwards, I competed when I had to for the reason, to get ready for a bigger event.
yeah,
So there wasn't that much wear and tear going on my body, like between, let's say, 26 and 35. It was keep fit, keep running, keep training, teaching, obviously, but it would be right. Okay, do one, two, three, four events, then the Euros or
yeah,
something like that, and so therefore you can kind of taper up and down.
yeah,
And again, if you said to me, did you do that by design? Probably not. It just felt right at the time.
yeah, yeah,
Like so, and I think that helped as well because I say like it's well, we don't know the evidence is out there to a certain extent that we can see people that have had hip surgeries and knee surgeries, replacements and whatnot. But I think the proof will come in the next 20 years when more of us get to the older ages and then we're like, oh my gosh. So
yeah,
fingers crossed so far.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of people that I see going through the surgeries and it's not
yeah,
great.
absolutely. I mean, there'll be people listening from all kind of ages and so on, and starting taekwondo at different stages of their. I mean, we have people joining in their 50s, don't we? And there's no
Yeah,
specific age nowadays for starting, other than when we were coming through. I mean, I was a bit older than you, 22, I think, and I thought, I thought I was one of the older ones. But like you said, there wasn't many kids, but there was people within those ages between you and I. You've got people starting anytime now. So it's very important to listen to your body, isn't it? And not make it
yeah.
do something it doesn't feel right, that kind of thing.
But yeah, going back to what you said there about just picking up on a point there about Islington Taekwondo Club or where you started, just pick up
Yeah,
that one. There was definitely a different feel in the clubs. It was almost like you felt like you were going to a competition every night.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you know, you'd say put your sparring pads up, line up down the floor, and like literally, like you'd be doing your best every night to try and win every match.
Yeah.
You know, like it was a different thing. It might not have been the most technical sparring, and it might not have got you anywhere beyond that. But in that moment there, it was the most important thing to try and put your mouth guard in and just try and win every match, crash bang wallop. Like it was a. But the club then had an energy about it. Like
Oh yeah, no, very much. Yeah, you talking about it there. I can remember when you line up and you're facing someone, you could count along to see who was one of the next ones. They were probably doing that with us, weren't they? But yeah, you suddenly worked out that you've got so and so coming round. So yeah,
so, Dave, did you do the same thing I used to do then, which was conserve your energy?
yeah, 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 that's for sure. Yeah, yeah. Depending
Look
what.
down the line and think, well, better take it easy on this person so that the next one I can have a bit of energy for.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a different time, but it did feel like a scrap most nights.
Yeah,
Um,
it was as it was, wasn't it? And that's what you signed up for. So that's how it was. But yeah, I mean, obviously, maybe we lost that somewhat, but there's a bit more inclusivity now, isn't there? You can have people of all ages, all.
yeah, and I think as well, it's again, it's that responsibility as a black belt. Let's say when you're in those environments in your class, where you're measuring your technique all the time. You as a better practitioner, you can catch that person with a shot, but you choose to control it. And
Yeah,
again, credit to some of the competitors I saw last weekend, because as you know, when you go to a national tournament, you get high level competitors and you get average competitors,
yeah, yeah,
and the level, the golfing class is a lot, and I think it's nice to see like high level competitors know that they can beat someone and they measure the shots properly. They
yeah,
touch, they score the point, but they don't go too far.
yeah,
And that, again, that shows good control as a black belt. So definitely, it's still there. But as I think what it is that when you and I trained in those early days, then because there was not many kids classes, not many children coming through, it felt like it was majority all adults training. It
yeah,
was 25 adults in the room. Everyone had signed up to the possibility of you're going for a hard class.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, yeah, no, but yeah, as I say, it's a bit different now. You've got different ages and maybe also the commitment level for some people is different, where they've got other things going on and they can't commit to training 2 or 3 nights a week, but they try and keep their hand in it by coming once a week,
Yeah.
and that's the reality of it, where they're not going to be as conditioned as those who do train more, I suppose.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that's right. And so you mentioned about obviously the control and everything. So we all teach the tenets, don't we, and the oath and everything. Is that something that's affected you over the years? Do you think? Having
Sorry, say that again.
well, everything we deal with in life, we reflect on. I suppose we bounce off our Taekwondo, don't we? That's what's been there all the time.
Yes.
But we have the tenets, don't we? We teach the children, teach the adults the tenets of Taekwondo, the
Yeah.
oath. Do you feel that's shaped you at all as you've been?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think obviously, personally, like it was funny because we had a small Master Nardizzi from Poland.
Yes.
Yeah, and like we were doing something over Zoom, and we were talking about like what is the most important tenet, and like some would say courtesy, some would say indomitable spirit, whatever,
Yeah.
and he said perseverance, and I was like, okay, explain. He said, well, without perseverance, none of us would be here. And I thought, well, that is a really good way of looking at the tenets, because it's quite true, isn't it? Like, we're still involved in Taekwondo because we persevered.
Yeah.
And then after that, you've got maybe courtesy or indomitable spirit, and the other ones might fall into line. So without, taking a leaf out of his book there, thinking, well, yeah, actually perseverance is a really key component to Taekwondo, because we wouldn't be here if we didn't have perseverance. But then as a competitor and as an instructor, I think that indomitable spirit, Does, you do need to lean on that quite a lot,
Yeah.
whether you're competing or teaching, whatever it might be. You've got to have that indomitable spirit, that unshakable spirit, especially through COVID.
Yeah.
Like as instructors through COVID. I mean, like I remember maybe someone saying to me on, let's say lockdown was going to happen on the Monday or the Sunday, whatever it's time, whatever it was in that March the 20th, 2020, whatever that around that time. And then someone said to me, "Oh, what are you going to do with your classes?" And I said, "Well, what can I do with my classes?" They said, "Well, I'm going to go on Zoom." And I was like, "What? I've got no idea what Zoom means. I don't understand it." And
Yeah.
then I kind of delved into it. I spoke to a couple of people. I said, "Oh, Zoom, okay, right." And then between, like, let's say the Sunday and the next week, suddenly I got into it. And I was like, "Oh, do you know what? We can do this."
Yeah.
And you go on Zoom. You've got your timetable of classes, and then through that perseverance and that indomitable spirit, you go, "Right, okay, I've got a program of classes. I'm online every night. I'm doing colour belt grading 4 months down the line." Like suddenly you just make it your world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But very easy to say, I'm not doing that. Forget about it. But I remember on the first night of doing the Zoom classes, again, I set it up in my front room. That was my new dojang
Yeah.
for the long term future. And I clicked on and I saw all the faces popping up of my students, and it was really cool because then we were in lockdown. You see all the students popping up, and then I didn't realize that when you press the button at the bottom, it showed how many pages
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
people online.
Yeah.
And I thought I had 25 training, and I was really happy with that. But
Yeah.
then I clicked the button, and there was another page of 25. I was like, wow, like 50 people coming to Taekwondo tonight. It's more than I get
Yeah.
in the class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, it was like that perseverance, noble spirit in that, guys. It was you needed it then, because okay, that was night number one, but when you're doing it for a year and a half, what it felt like,
Yeah.
that's tough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, very much. Yeah, you put a great point there, don't you? A great case for perseverance. Like you said, we've all had to use it because otherwise, like you said, we wouldn't be doing this now.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, that was a real testing time. But I think those of us that did do the Zoom stuff, and we did try and keep teaching and try and keep Taekwondo moving forward, when it reverted back to person classes, I think it helped that initial spark, because then people were doing it. They didn't lose their perseverance. They didn't lose their indomitable spirit. They just kept going as well.
yeah,
And I think it was a valuable source for those people and for us as instructors to kind of, you know, get away from the norm, the mundane,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and just start training in your front room.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. But you, excuse me. You mentioned. I was going to ask you about General Che because I often
Yeah.
do these things. Um, you met him, trained with him.
I went to, so my first, I think, first meeting was in 1992. I was a red belt or black tag
Yeah.
at an IIC in Dublin.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember that one. Yeah.
Grandmaster Ellis, I remember, was the most senior student.
Yeah.
And then there was a sea of black belts all the way down a huge banquet hall in a hotel in Dublin. And then I was at if Grandmaster Ellis was at the top right hand corner,
Yeah.
I was in the bottom left hand corner. Do you know what I mean? Right,
Yeah.
right at the back of the hall, and yeah, like it was a bit of a surreal moment, I think, because I was young, and then you hear the command to come to attention, and you kind of, I remember, just because I'm in the bottom left corner, he came in on the right hand side,
Yeah.
up the side of the black belts that way, and everyone's clapping, but because I was so far in the left hand corner, I couldn't see him,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm thinking they're clapping, I still can't see him, still can't see him. Then obviously he's now getting towards the front, he's now turning to the front, and I still can't see him, and it's chariot pinier, da 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 da, and then everyone sit down, and then there was this like a small man in stature,
Yeah.
and it's a surreal thing to, and then Grandmaster E is with him, Master E was with him, and you just see these two polar opposites. You see the grace and the beauty of Taekwondo in the way General Che showed the movement
Yeah,
and the fierce power that Grandmaster Lee showed when he executed the movement.
yeah, yeah,
And and it was a 5-day seminar, and again, General Che thought nothing of doing up to Chonji, I think, on the first day. You know, incredible that you could make that a day, and
yeah.
then the next day, like it was just like small parts every day. And I think probably by about the Tuesday or Wednesday, my time was done on the course
All
because
right.
it went for Chungmu. But I think I went back and looked every day and saw some stuff. But yeah, that was the first time that I kind of met him, and
Wow.
you know, and then after that, a couple of times at competitions like European champs or
Yeah,
world champs, he might be a dignitary there, obviously. But yeah, to see him do techniques was the only time to see him performing some movements and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
yeah. Because the 5 days was, well, from what I've interviewed people before, it used to be even longer than that. Could it be 2 weeks?
really.
But then 5 days was that was something. And then after that, because of the amount of time we wanted to get around, I guess it came down to weekends, didn't it? So I
Yeah,
managed to make a couple of the weekends, but 5 days must have been something else, especially
yeah.
at level and age you were. Wow, what an
You just
experience.
need a lot. I mean, I think like again, it's just that level of concentration. Like, I probably didn't have. I was a black tag or whatever, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm just here, and I can't really take it all in. But
Yeah,
to see some of the seniors up the front there that was their norm, you know, to sit in a room for 5 days, or at least,
yeah,
and do taekwondo with the founder, So, um, but yeah, it was it's surreal. More like I was just probably an observer, if I'll
yeah,
be honest,
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
soaking it all up and
Yeah, I mean, I was older, and only on a weekend one, like you said, in Leicester. It felt like someone took everything I knew, that I knew about Taekwondo, and showed me a totally different experience, really. Like you said, being there from first thing in the morning last to the evening, doing
yeah,
just a few things, really, but with so much
yeah,
detail, explanation, and yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, incredible experience. But again, you know, I have my condensed encyclopedia, which he signed in '92.
um,
And again, like just have those little mementos where you think, that was, you know, none of us can help when we're born because obviously we'd have loved to have done 25 seminars with General Che, but we
yeah,
can't help that, or when we started Taekwondo. So yeah, kudos to those instructors and grandmasters that managed to spend a lot of time with him, because that could only be amazing as well to have that, but I think the nice thing is that there are a lot of grandmasters like Grandmaster Morano, Grandmaster Lan in our group,
yeah,
Grandmaster McPhail, Grandmaster Hillis, a lot of people that spent time with him, and you can still feel it coming out.
yeah,
You know, you can still they're not changing; they're just solidifying what his vision was. And
yeah,
they've still got the stories and they've still got the way about them.
yeah. Yeah, because you've mentioned Grandmaster Lan to me, haven't you? And
Yeah,
how you find his influence on you, and
yeah, 100%. Yeah, very, very, very. Well, just I think an example to us all of you know what we should aspire to in terms of a martial artist. Just very humble and wants to give knowledge all the time. And you think you can spend, I'm fortunate enough that he done some seminars for my students, and he spent like the weekend at my house and stuff, and
wow,
just those times where you're thinking I've got this amazing martial arts in my house, but really he's just so humble, and
yeah,
you're just chatting about taekwondo, chatting about life and whatnot, and you think, yeah, if we can all be like that as we get older, then we're doing a good job.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Excellent. Okay, well, it's been amazing speaking to you and catching up after all these years,
Cool.
and just listening and hearing about everything you've done, achieved, and still, like you said, at a relatively young age as a senior master. I'm sure you got more goals, things that you'd like to happen, is there?
Yeah. So, I always think to myself, the rank of ninth degree is not unattainable, but it's not in my hands. Like it's not a grading which I can go and do and say, blah blah. It's a different thing where you get awarded the rank of ninth degree based on your service and time in Taekwondo. So for me, getting to eighth degree was always the first goal, because that was the bit I can control.
Yeah.
And I suppose the next part is trying to, keep on top of my technique, keep bringing up good students, um, and hopefully, as the days unfold and the years unfold, then hopefully, a ninth degree is possible. But on the journey between now and then, it's just more of the same, and hopefully, just keep training and keep training students.
Yeah. 100%. So really, all the things you've been doing since you was 19 when you started teaching.
Yeah.
Yourself training, the epitome of the martial arts student is still there.
Yeah.
And like you said, you still have the hunger to teach the next person Saju Jurugi.
Yeah, 100%.
Better than last time.
Yeah. And then you think how many people have you taught Sagittarius to? Like it's And then I have two students in my club that are 6th-degree black belts.
Right.
So I've got a handful of international instructors, and now 2 of them have gone 6th degree. So again, teaching someone Tongil, or having to stay on top of your technique because they want to know what the 37th movement of So-San is, and whatever it might be. You can't sleep on it. You've got to keep going because I've got students that hopefully one day will become 7th degrees.
Yeah.
And that'll be an amazing achievement to have people in your gym that have been there for 25, 30 years themselves,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so those goals are kind of they're important. But again, like I say, like teaching Tongil, teaching So-San, all those things. When I look at people like Grandmaster Milan, Grandmaster Morano, Grandmaster Ellis, you think, they know those patterns like Chonji.
Right.
They know those patterns like Chonji. Like that's incredible. It's a whole new level of learning and training when you've done them so many times over the last 20, 30 years, those senior patterns where they know everything about them.
Yeah.
I just aside there, I've done some private lessons with Grandmaster Ellis in preparation for my 8th dan, and simple thing like looking at how he delivers power and technique, and it's incredible. Like things like the bow wrist technique in Tongil.
Yeah.
Like amazing amount of power. Just in all these small little parts of Taekwondo, and you and I both know that doesn't happen unless you've trained those small parts all the time.
Yeah.
It's not a fluke. So that gives me inspiration to think, well, that's what you've got gaming for,
Yeah, that's it. So when you like you say, when maybe you in the early years you might have thought, well, one day I'll have to hang up my belt and everything, and then you go to seminar with this like 70 or 80-year-old grandmasters.
Yeah.
You think, well, that may never have to happen,
No, that's right. Yeah. And even when I say to my students, I think of learning a pattern, let's say in 3 parts, and I say to them, there's 3 parts in the pattern. The first part is you learn the movement. Yeah. The third part is you perform the pattern at a competition or a grading. But the second part is the most important one, because that's the bit where you're rehearsing, practicing, studying, and that might be 1,000 layers in that second part. And I think that depth of knowledge is what I'm trying to say about these guys, that, the depth of knowledge from learning the pattern Tongil to them performing it is like thousands and thousands of repetitions of particular movements.
Yeah.
And you do feel quite junior next to them when they're talking about the movement like they are in Chonji,
Yeah.
It's just like, you know your place.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It's a great point you make about the bit about the patterns, and that's something people will pick up on, I'm sure, from listening to this and picking up on some of the things that you've been saying. Because the people listening are going to be inspired to hear your story, and I'm sure there'll be students of yours listening as well. And it's great to hear about your career and everything you've achieved and learned up until now, and just how you see things going forwards as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Master Symonds, for spending time with me and recording this podcast. It's been great listening to you.
And thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, hopefully see you soon.